anybody. And we'll have time to share later, but you can share whatever you want to, and you also don't have to share anything that you don't want to. So this is going to be a little bit more informal than some of my other classes, a little bit more casual so here's what happened. I was teaching this workshop for once a week for about a year, and then I had to stop for some reasons. But it was having trouble just technically deleting from the community calendar, so I deleted it, through till the fall a few months ago, and so I realized they're still here for October. So I'll be here if anybody wants to show up, and it's amazing how many of you are here. So I've been thinking about restarting this. I don't know if it's going to be every week or once a month, or we'll just whenever I feel like it, when I feel up to it. But yeah, so I don't have like a really detailed lesson plan for today, but we're going to do some fun activities that we've done in the past, and I know that some of you have enjoyed before. So you could also feel free to put in the chat if you're new to this workshop or if you have been here before and what you'd like to get out of it. What brought you here today? Also, take a minute right now, if you don't have it, to go grab something, a piece of paper, something to write with, and or your nature journal. And you can also use a voice recorder if you prefer, because they're still words if we're speaking them, and that's still recording our thoughts and observations. So I'm just going to give a minute for anybody who needs to grab anything. Brand new to nature journaling in our homeschool class. Well, that's very exciting. That means you have a lot of adventures ahead of you, and I hope this community can offer you a lot of support for that. So a lot of times nature journaling can focus on pictures, which is also fantastic. I think words are also a really powerful way to do nature journaling because our brain works in different ways when we use pictures or words or numbers. So when we can sorry, just trying to keep up with the chat. Yeah, so when we use words, pictures, and numbers as many different ways as possible, we're using like as many different parts of our brain and processing the information as most as we can. Like to learn to be creative, have a hard time coming up with things to write that aren't technical. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Writing is also a really great way, I think, to combine both having like the scientific, technical, curious mindset, but also we can explore our personal side and our emotions. And I think that's another reason words are a really powerful tool to use. Yeah, sorry about the confusion on the times. I don't know why it says that. For me, it all says Eastern time, and it all says 12 p.m. Eastern time. So I don't know what's happening with that. So I apologize for the confusion. I'm not sure we can do with that, and welcome from Boston. Okay, that's enough of welcoming and introductions. Thanks again for being here and introducing yourselves also. Welcome to all of you. So let's grab our pieces of paper or what we're using. I gotta get one for myself. And what I would like us to do is first, let's just spend 2 minutes doing a free write of whatever is in your head, literally just to get kind of practice, get the words flowing. Kind of if you think of a drawing warm-up, it's like, let's just draw some circles or draw some lines, but the writing version of that. So I'm going to put a timer on for 2 minutes. just start writing whatever words come into your head. They don't have to be about nature. You can think of this as like cleaning the cobwebs out of the corners of your mind, or clearing off the road dust, because we all have stuff going on in our lives, and things to do and things that are annoying us, or things that are just taking up space in our brain, which we would like to use more of that space in our brain to be creative and to think deeply about things. So just I'm going to put a timer on for 2 minutes. When I say go, just start writing your thoughts, whatever comes into your head. They don't have to be full sentences. It doesn't have to be good grammar. Just write. So ready, set, go. If you just got here, we're writing with about 10 more seconds left on the timer. Okay, the timer just ended. So if you just got here, if you were writing, finish whatever thought you're on, put your pencils down. And if you just got here, we were just doing a 2-minute little warm-up, free writing, stream of consciousness, whatever thoughts came into our head. So how did that go for you guys? Did it feel good? Did it feel hard? Did it bring up any emotions? Did it just think about how that went for you? And now I would like us to do the same kind of stream of consciousness writing. This is just about getting the words out, not worrying about how it's presented or anything like that. But I would like to take a suggestion from the audience of you guys, from the class. If you have an idea, put some kind of nature related word into the chat. Oh, there's a lot of good ones here. We got fall, overcast, hawk, homeostasis, rainy, migration, birds, wind, color, hibernation, blue jays, acorns, oak. That goes with acorns. I'm gonna pick migration, because that's a good one for this time of year. But if you want to pick a different prompt, You can pick whichever one you want. So I'm gonna write migration on a line on my paper, and then I'm going to put on the timer this time for 5 minutes. So we can free write on the topic of migration. So this could be things that you know about migration, things that you like, emotions you have on this idea of migration. Some you could write about some migrating birds that you observed recently on a bird watching trip, or you could write about the play. What do you imagine the other places those birds go to? What are they like? And or anything that you want to write. You could also think about the metaphors of, thinking about where you can observe migration in nature. But how does that connect to your own life? Have you moved to a new place before? Or do you know people who have moved to a new place? What is that whole experience like? How does it make you feel? So nothing is off limits here. You can write anything that comes to your mind about migration. And again, you don't have to write full sentences. In our first prompt, I think I had one run-on sentence for the entire 2 minutes. So you can do run-on sentences, you can do bullet points. Just really want to emphasize that anything goes here. So when I'm going to put on 5 minutes and we can start. So start now. All right, this 5-minute timer is up. So just finish whatever thought you were at, and you can always add more later. Just right now, I want you to just pay attention and notice, how does it really feel to tune in to your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own experience when you let that come through. And when you start with one little thought, it can lead to so many things that we didn't even expect. So I want to actually try something that, hang on, am I still sharing this? I'm gonna close that whiteboard. So I want to try something that one of my students told me about, that I've been wanting to try. So we do a free write like this for a few minutes. And I learned about this from Karen, who's from Germany. And I forgot where she said she learned it. It might have been a writing class that she took or something like that. So take a minute to look back at what you just wrote and the thoughts that came out on this topic of migration or whatever topic you chose. And put a star or circle or highlight on what do you think is the most interesting idea that came out from this free write. What's the most juicy bit there that you'd like to explore more? Or just something that you think is interesting or that makes you curious. I think for me, there are a few interesting things that came up. So if that's the case for you too, just you can highlight all of them if you want, or just pick one. It doesn't have to be your ultimate favorite, just one that you like for right now. So once you've got that, take that quote or idea and make that as a new heading. And we'll write off of that for the next 5 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer again now for 5 more minutes and write off, write again, stream of consciousness, free write based on this new idea, which you pulled from our last free write. Let's see how this goes. Starting now. All right, that's the timer again. So just finish up whatever sentence or thought you're on. And welcome. I think it's Mary, who I just let in from the waiting room. I apologize for you were waiting. I'm not sure how long you were in there, but we were just finishing up a 5-minute free write. So just reflect for a few seconds on how that one went for you. What directions did your thoughts go in? Was there anything unexpected or surprising? Did it feel hard or easy to do this? And if it did feel hard, this kind of free writing, jumping into it thing doesn't work for everybody, but it's just one technique that we're playing with today. So whether it was hard or easy, good for you for being here and being willing to try it out and play along. So let's try this one more time. Look back at what you wrote for this time. And again, circle or star or highlight the most interesting idea that came from this one. And if you just got here, we started with taking some suggestions in the chat. I picked the word migration. So we wrote for 5 minutes going off from that idea, then picked our favorite idea that came up in our writing, and then wrote for 5 minutes based on that. So if you're just getting here for our last one, you could just start with the word migration. Or free write on any topic you want. Also, if nothing particularly interesting came up in this one we just did, but if you had multiple ideas from your first one that were interesting to you, you could also pull one of those and put that as your new heading. Okay, so if you haven't yet put your new prompt or idea, I wrote it on a new line on my page and underlined it. So I'll put the timer on for 5 minutes. Again, we can free write about this, and then we'll have some time to share before we finish up for anybody who wants to share. So here's a timer again for 5 minutes, starting now. All right, that's been 5 more minutes again. So once again, finish up whatever thought you were having. And you can always add to this later if you want to. And again, if you just got here, we started with the word migration, wrote for 5 minutes about that, then picked our favorite idea that came up, wrote for 5 minutes about that idea, and then picked our favorite idea from that writing and wrote about that for 5 minutes. So let me stop sharing this whiteboard. Looks different now for some reason. I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure how to get rid of this whiteboard actually. So, oh no, there it goes. Anyway, now we can have some time to share. So I'm curious, maybe you could start, if anybody wants to write in the chat, what was the most, either the most interesting thing that came up in any of your writing today, or what was the most, was there anything that was like very far from the idea of migration? Where did your thoughts migrate you to? So if you want to write anything in the chat to share. Do humans cling to their cars so hard because of that urge to move that might be inborn? That's an interesting question. So wrote about yourself, but related to the concept of migration. That's an interesting way to do it too. Migration carried along with the wind, with weather, birds, leaves, and seeds. Yeah, so all of those things that have to do with migration or moving. Back to the idea of home. Interesting stages of writing. First narrative, and then a little more philosophical, and then more universal commentary on life. Yeah, so our writing can take all of these different forms. It can be more technical, it can be more personal or philosophical, and that's okay. And one can flow to the other. And Gwen realized how little I actually know about the subject, made a list of birds that migrate and ones that don't, and got so many wrong. And that's okay too, because writing can be a way where we can see our thoughts put on paper. What do we know? What are we curious about? And help us figure out what we want to learn more about. Oh, my wanting to migrate by boat, going in the summer to the north and going south to help with hurricane season relief. Still want to, but don't know how to start. Yeah, so it's really interesting when we can see we all started with this one word, but we ended up in so many different places. That was all interesting to us. And perhaps whatever we wrote today is what we needed it to be and what we needed to think about and process and give us a chance to explore that. Yeah, each highlighted passage led to another stream of thought. So migrating ideas, writing and thinking about what it's like from the bird's perspective. How do they know when they're ready to cross a large body of water or land? So from watching peregrine falcons getting ready to cross water. Yeah, I started thinking about one of the things that came up in my writing just now was thinking about how caribou migrate and they need so much open land that's, you know, free and open to them to be able to get where they want to go. And how does it feel for them to migrate? How do they know where they need to go and when? And how do they find the way? Another person started with hummingbird migration questions, and by the end was writing all the questions about raptor migration. Started out watching migrating birds at a distance, and then ending with personal close-up experience watching birds. Yeah. Wondered why birds migrate. That took me to how does climate change affect migration? Climate change took me to the different things I can do to mitigate climate change in my home. Yeah, so thinking about what are the phenomena, the things happening in nature that we observe, and then coming back around to what can we do? How can we help? What is our stewardship, our relationship to the land, our responsibility to take care of things? Let's see, the surprise to observe a species in an unusual place where you can't see it in most part of the year. Yeah, and that makes me think about how some species migrate on a, you know, pretty predictable path, but sometimes they end up in unexpected places because, you know, they're all individuals and they haven't read the book about what range they're supposed to live in. They're all individual creatures making decisions based on their information and their, I don't know whether it's learned or instinct or some combination. So yeah, many interesting things. Thank you everybody for sharing in the chat. Continue to put something in the chat if you want to. And is there anybody who would like to unmute and share about either you can read directly what you wrote or just talk a little bit about what it was that you wrote? Yeah, so feel free, raise your hand or click on the raise hand button. If you'd like, I can call on you. And again, this is the part where you don't have to share at all. And you get to pick the parts that you want to share. There might have been some really personal things that came up. And so you might not want to share those, and that's okay. So every time we share something in our nature journals, you get to choose what pages to share and how to share and who you want to share it with. So also, if you don't feel comfortable sharing in a big group with all these people who you don't know, maybe there's somebody in your real life who you might want to share it with if that makes you more comfortable. So it's all completely up to you. So Barbara Liss, you're raising your hand. Would you like to share something?
I wouldn't mind sharing my thoughts on migration, and they came out in, you know, like 2 or 3 word thoughts. And so it started with leaving behind, new environment, exciting change, change around you creates change within you, leaving but looking forward to returning, new beginnings, new adventures along the way, keeping life interesting, changing routines, doing what's best for you, a life circle, strength with others, getting along, taking turns, having strength for the journey, staying fit, being prepared, and getting ready. And you stopped the time right at getting ready. So thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for not being afraid to just write a couple words and just getting your thoughts all out there. So yeah, you got a lot of things down on that first one and a lot of very different ideas, which is great. Was there anything was there anything especially interesting to you out of all of those ideas? Or anything surprising?
Taking turns was the one I starred. And then my next list was shorter, but it was about how to take turns.
So like, was that coming from taking turns? It's making me think about like birds. They take turns in different places, and sometimes they're here and sometimes they're here. So
Right,
did you kind
right.
of bring that to the idea of taking turns more
Like let
generally? Like,
somebody else take the lead. Yes, I was definitely thinking about that flock of birds, and one will take the lead and
oh, I
then
see.
come back and let the next one take the lead. And so, yeah, I really was thinking about the birds the whole time, but relating it to life. So, yeah, change is
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah, really interesting. Um, Thank you for sharing that. So is
Thank,
there anything else that you want to say?
nope, that's good.
Thank you,
Thank,
Barbara. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Would anybody else like to share? We've got about 10 minutes. What were some of your migrating thoughts? And again, there's no pressure, no judgment. We're not, writing an essay for school or entering a writing competition or anything like that. This is just for you. Kathleen.
I started with some childhood memories of just watching ducks and geese migrate overhead. And then I went into I'd mentioned a little philosophy of myself. And then the last one, I'll just read a couple sentences from the beginning of my last writing. Even if we don't want to migrate, we do. Time is migration. Life is one big migration from birth to death.
So really going deep with that, thinking about how that's our own lives. And yeah, we're always migrating. Things are always changing in some ways or others. So yeah, thank you. From the chat, Susan plans to keep track of migrating species versus local residents and keep track of non-bird activity. So yeah, that's something that we can start to pay attention to in our nature journals. What are the species that are around all the time, and what are the ones that are not? And when do they leave, and when do they come? So before people start leaving, again, keep raising your hand if you'd like to share something, but I'd also like us to think about what was your biggest takeaway from this activity today? Either in the ideas that you wrote about or just in the process of doing this, what was it like? And how will you apply that to your nature journaling? What would you like to continue, put in your toolbox, or how will what we did today be something that you can take with you? What do you like about using words? What did you like about today? How do you want to continue to use words in your nature journal practice? So let's write about that for a minute. I'd love it if you share it in this chat so we can all see what our takeaways are. I think for me, I mentioned this earlier, but one of the things I always come back to is just the idea that so often we have a little thought that we might think is not even big enough or important enough to be worth writing down. When we have a thought that comes into our head, But if we do write it down, it can just start to naturally lead to other thoughts and other thoughts from there, and can, and we never would have gotten there if we didn't start with this first little thought, which didn't even seem that important, maybe. Like Hugh says, this exercise helps branch ideas from smaller nuggets, like following down a line of questions, but also with observations and feelings. So yeah, it's kind of like a question chain when you're like, here's what I wonder, and that makes me wonder this, and that makes me wonder this. But it's with all the parts of ourselves, all of our questions, and also our thoughts and our emotions. A lot flows from one word. And as he says, even if we don't branch right away, highlighting the nuggets are helpful for later. So you can always come back later and expand on anything that you highlighted or that you thought was interesting. It doesn't have to end in the confines of this 1 hour class. And we can think about there can be questions that come up that we don't have easy answers for because they're very deep or complex questions. So you don't have to worry about having the right answers or getting to the answers. There can be some questions we think of that could be lifelong explorations or lifelong wonderings. A couple more things from the chat. We might not have a lot of room to write deeply in our nature journal, so the nature journal might be a place for the smaller nuggets and then journal more in another notebook later. Yeah, and you can approach this however you want to. Personally, my nature journal does tend to be a lot of words, so it can be this deeper kind of thing. I have a lot of pages where maybe I have a doodle or a drawing and it's mostly words on the page. So you can do that, but it also, it's totally up to you how you want to structure it. You can have a separate journal where you go more in depth on the philosophizing and thinking and based on what you observed in the field. But again, it's up to you. There's no right or wrong. Thinking of writing thoughts on a separate paper, organizing them, and then writing them in my journal. Yeah, so same thing. If you want your journal to be really like formatted a certain way, or something like that, then you can do it on the side and put the thoughts, organize them more there. So yeah, there's always really kind of two parts of a writing process. There's the just get everything down, which is what we did today. And then if you want to organize things or make them a little bit neater or edit them for any particular purpose, you can do that too. You could also, another idea you could do is do this kind of writing, and then you could even cut up this piece of paper and, take the things that you want to save and tape them or paste them into your nature journal. So there's a lot of possibilities. Okay, now there's just a couple things that I would like to share in the chat before we finish up. So the first thing is, if you enjoyed this and you'd like to make a donation, that helps me continue to be able to offer these things. So I just put a link for that in the chat. There's no pressure. Any amount is always appreciated. If you don't want to donate, just try to pass it on with an act of kindness. Do something for somebody else if you can. Finally, okay, a couple other things. Oh, if you want to watch past workshops, I'm going to put the link to my YouTube channel. This is where I put the writing workshop links. There's a bunch of old workshops there if you want to check them out. One more thing I want to share is, if you're not subscribed to my email newsletter list and you want to keep up with things that I'm offering and free classes and paid classes and other things, and the things that I share on my blog and my emails, I've got a couple of free gifts that you can get. And when you subscribe to my emails, if you want to keep up with the things that I'm doing. And finally, one last thing I just want to share as an announcement is, that I'm going to be teaching a new cohort of my course, Nature Journaling for Restoration, coming up really soon. This is based on the quote from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Kimmerer about how it's not just the land that's broken, but our relationship to the land, and the land can't heal until we learn to tell its stories. So it's about nature journaling. It's kind of storytelling. It's kind of ecology and learning more about the land that's right around us and how do we feel a sense of home there and how do we give back to it, and kind of this idea of nature journaling and stewardship that's been coming a lot lately. It's pretty in line with that. So I just have a survey. If you're interested in that and you want to let me know what days and times you'd want me to offer that, because I'm just going to offer a couple, then I'll take that into consideration of what times you're interested in. So thanks for listening. Those are all the announcements that I have. And yeah, we have a couple minutes left. If anybody wants to share, it's your last chance, so raise your hand now. And I hope that you had a good time today, and you will take something away from this that will help your nature journaling practice and help you to get out there and explore and find all the wonders in the world around you. Which is really beneficial to all of us because it's been a really stressful couple of years for everybody, and nature journaling and writing and just getting in tune with the world around us and getting in tune with ourselves can be a really great way for us to cope with all of that stuff that's going on. So thanks for being here, and last call if you want to share with the group or get some feedback or whatnot. And not seeing anybody raise your hand, so I'll post the recording of this later. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. This has been the Nature Journal Writing Workshop Wednesdays. And yeah, I haven't done this since March. So congratulations, you got to be at the first one that's happened since March. I would like to start doing this more, I think, because there's more ideas that I want to share, and there's more things that I want to play with. So yeah, I'm hoping to do some more of these and restart this. It might not be every week because that became hard to keep up with for a free offering for me personally. But yeah, if there's anything that you specifically would like to see, let me know in the Facebook group or in the email. And I hope to see you whenever I do this next time. So thank you, everybody. And have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you, Rebecca. Bye.
Bye. It's good to see you again. Thank you for being here, and you're welcome to everybody.
Hi, bye.
Hi.